I want you to picture a country as a piece of intricate machinery. You have the gears, the pistons, the wiring.
Okay.
Now, imagine that every single one of those gears has its own personality. Some gears want to spin left, others right, and they all speak different languages. The challenge isn't just making the machine run.
It's keeping it from flying apart.
Exactly. It's keeping it from exploding into a million pieces.
That's basically the engineering challenge of federalism in a nutshell.
Right. And it feels like this central puzzle of the modern world.
Yeah.
How do you create a one out of many without just crushing the many? How do you balance that need for a unified nation with the intense desire for local identity?
It's a total tightrope walk. You see it everywhere. Spain with Catalonia, the UK with Scotland, here in North America, and certainly in the Horn of Africa. If you lean too far toward unity, you get tyranny.
And if you lean too far toward diversity, you get fragmentation. Today, we're going to explore this whole machinery through the eyes of someone who has actually been inside the engine room. We are looking at the life and work of Habtamu Nini Abino. And I have to say, looking at his profile, he is not your typical academic.
No, not at all. And that's what makes him such a valuable lens for this deep dive. In academia, we have this term scholar practitioner.
Right.
Usually it's, a bit of an aspirational title. But in Habtamu's case, it's completely literal. He hasn't just written about the theory of constitutions. He's administered the very institutions that those constitutions created.
So we're going to trace that arc today. We've got a stack of sources here, the professional biography, his published works, records of his public service. We're going to follow his path from the highlands of Ethiopia through boardrooms into the halls of government, and now to his current work as a civic thinker in Canada.
And what I love about this trajectory is that it bridges that gap between the ideal and the real. I mean, a lot of people can tell you how a democracy should work. Habtamu knows how it actually works when the budget's tight, the stakeholders are angry, and the cement factory has to meet its quota.
Okay, so let's start at the foundation. The sources place his origins in Arsi in the West Arsi zone of Ethiopia.
Which is a crucial piece of context. This is the Oromia region. And the bio explicitly mentions he was born into a family grounded in strong ethical traditions.
That phrase caught my eye. Strong ethical traditions. It sounds nice, but does it signal something more specific in this context?
I think it does. We can touch on this more when we get to his current research, but in that cultural context, ethics isn't just about, being polite. It's about social obligation.
Okay.
There's a deep-seated concept of community responsibility. The bio notes an early commitment to public service. So when you come from that background, education isn't just a ticket out for yourself. It's a tool you're expected to bring back to fix things.
So he takes that drive and builds this incredible academic toolkit. He studies at the Open University in the UK. And this is where I want to pause, because his degree combination is, well, it's lethal.
It's a fascinating mix, isn't it?
He holds a Bachelor of Laws, an LLB, but he pairs it with a Master of Business Administration, an MBA.
The lawyer and the manager.
Exactly. Usually those are two totally different species. The lawyer is trained to spot risk, find the problem, to say stop.
And the MBA is trained to find efficiency, to optimize, to say, go.
Right.
But think about how powerful it is when those two mindsets exist in the same brain, especially for someone going into government. If you only have the legal training, you view the state as what? A set of statutes. You see the text on the page.
You see the rules.
Exactly. But the state is also a massive organization. It has employees, budgets, logistics. So if you add that MBA perspective, you stop looking at government as just a legal entity and you start seeing it as an operational one. You don't just ask, is this constitutional?
You ask, can we actually deliver this? Is it efficient?
Yes. Is it deliverable? That's the key.
And that idea deliverability seems to define the first phase of his career. He returns to Ethiopia and takes on the role of head of capacity building in Dire Dawa.
Capacity building. That's one of those terms that gets thrown around in international development until it almost loses all meaning.
Please, reclaim it for us. Because to me, it sounds like running a few HR seminars.
Well, in the context of a developing federal state like Ethiopia in the post-1994 era, capacity building is the difference between a failed state and a functioning one. You have to remember, the country had just decentralized. Power was pushed down to the regions and cities.
So suddenly, Dire Dawa has to manage all its own affairs.
Exactly. But do they have the systems to collect taxes? Do they have urban planning protocols? Do they have trained civil servants to draft local ordinances? Capacity building is literally building the plumbing of the state. It's installing the operating system so the government can actually govern.
So Habtamu is there, effectively as a systems architect, trying to make the local government work. But then he moves to a role that's much more macro. He becomes the Secretary General of the House of Federation.
This is a pivotal moment in his story. I think to understand his scholarship later, you absolutely have to understand the House of Federation.
Okay, so for our listeners who aren't experts on the Horn of Africa, how is this different from, say, the Senate in the U.S. or Canada?
It's fundamentally different. In most Western democracies, if there's a debate about what the Constitution means, where do you go?
The Supreme Court?
Right. Unelected judges in robes decide. They are the final arbiters. In Ethiopia, the Constitution of 1994 took a completely different path. It gave the power of constitutional interpretation to the House of Federation.
Which is a political body.
A political body composed of representatives of the nations, nationalities, and peoples of Ethiopia.
Wait, so the representatives of the ethnic groups themselves get to interpret the supreme law of the land.
Yes. The logic, and it's a fascinating piece of political philosophy, is that the Constitution is a contract between these nations. Therefore, the nations themselves should be the guardians of that contract, not some detached judiciary.
That changes the dynamic completely. It makes constitutional law a constant negotiation.
Precisely. And Habtamu was the Secretary General. He wasn't just a voting member. He was the Chief Administrative Officer. He was the one managing the entire machinery of intergovernmental relations.
So if one region had a conflict with another, or a dispute over federal money,
it all flowed through that institution and through his office. He wasn't just reading about federalism. He was in the room where all the friction happens, watching how the one and the many actually talk to each other when real money and power are on the line.
He's seeing the raw mechanics of national unity.
An incredibly high-pressure environment. The decisions made there determine the stability of the entire country.
And then comes this plot twist. After serving in this incredibly high-level constitutional role, he doesn't run for office, he doesn't open a law firm, he goes into industry.
The MBA side of the brain activates.
He chaired the board of the Harrow Brewery and the Dyer Dala Cement Factory.
Cement and beer.
Yeah.
You can't get more tangible than that.
It feels like a massive pivot. I mean, you go from interpreting the rights of nations to worrying about kiln temperatures and barley shipments. Why would you make that jump?
I'd argue it's not a jump away from governance. It's a dive deeper into the reality of it. We talk about nation building as this abstract thing, but nation building is also literally building.
Oh.
You need cement for the roads, the dams, the hospitals. You need industry to create jobs.
So he's seeing the other side of the coin. The House of Federation is the political superstructure, but the factories are the economic base.
Exactly. If you're a true scholar practitioner, you can't just understand the laws. You have to understand the economy that pays for the laws. By leading these enterprises, Habtamu gets a view of the material reality of the state. He understands labor, supply chains, the impact of policy on business.
It grounds his theory. It's easy to write a regulation. It's much harder to meet a production quota under that regulation.
It creates a feedback loop in his thinking. The practitioner is constantly informing the scholar.
Which brings us perfectly to the scholar phase. He eventually steps back to synthesize all this experience into writing, and he goes straight for the most difficult topic imaginable.
He really does.
He wrote The Second Republic and the politics of Article 39 in Ethiopia.
We have to talk about Article 39. In the world of comparative constitutional law, it is famous. In Ethiopian politics, it's everything.
Break it down for us. What does Article 39 actually say?
In short, Article 39 grants the nations, nationalities, and peoples of Ethiopia the unconditional right to self-determination up to and including secession.
The right to secede. So the Constitution explicitly gives parts of the country legal permission to leave the country.
Yes. It's an incredibly rare provision in modern constitutions. Most states declare themselves indivisible. Ethiopia's constitution basically says, we are together by choice, and here's the legal mechanism to leave if you change your mind.
That sounds paradoxical. You're trying to build a unified nation by handing everyone an exit ticket.
That is the core tension. And the theory is that by guaranteeing the right to leave, you create enough trust for people to want to stay. It's a holding together strategy. But as Habtamu explores in his book, the politics of that are incredibly messy.
And that's key. The title is The Politics of Article 39. He isn't just analyzing the legal text.
No, because the text itself is simple. The application is where it gets complex. He analyzes the opportunities and tensions inherent in that design. How do you maintain national cohesion when the threat of breakup is written into your founding document? He's looking at how political actors use and misuse that article.
He also wrote another book that I think really highlights his philosophy. It's titled Liberal Democracy and the Constitution of 1994, The User's Handbook.
The User's Handbook. I absolutely love that title.
Me too. It just changes how you think about the law. A handbook is something you keep in the glove compartment. It's a tool.
It is. It implies that a constitution isn't some sacred scroll to be locked away in a museum. It's a piece of machinery that citizens are supposed to operate.
It goes right back to that capacity-building mindset from his Dyer Dawa days.
It does. But instead of building capacity for bureaucrats, now he's trying to build capacity for the public. He wants active and informed citizens. He's demystifying the complex legal structures he helped manage, translating them so ordinary people can understand their rights and responsibilities.
The implication being, if you don't know how to use the machine
will use you. Precisely. Democracy requires a certain level of technical literacy from the population. Habtamu is trying to provide the manual.
So we have this incredible career in Ethiopia: institutional builder, industrial leader, constitutional scholar. But the story has a second act. The sources tell us Habtamu eventually settled in Canada.
And this is where the comparative aspect of his scholarship really blossoms.
He didn't just retire. He engaged. He's a member of the Laurier Club, which is a pretty significant platform for public policy dialogue in Canada.
And think about the perspective he brings to that room. Canada is also a federation. It deals with questions of Quebec's distinct society, Indigenous sovereignty, regional alienation in the West.
It's the one versus many puzzle all over again.
Exactly. But he's seen a version where the stakes were, frankly, life and death. He knows what happens when federalism fails to contain the pressure. That's the value of the comparative lens he brings. He's looking at the Canadian experiment through the eyes of someone who knows the Ethiopian experiment intimately.
He's asking, how does a stable multinational federation manage these tensions? What can we learn from each other?
And he's not just doing this at the elite policy level. The bio emphasizes his work with diaspora community initiatives. He's acting as a bridge there, too.
The phrase constructive participation stood out to me.
It's the user's handbook philosophy again, isn't it? He's telling his community, you are here now. Understand this system. Participate in it. Bring your heritage, but be an active citizen here. He's focused on that intergenerational connection, making sure the younger generation understands both where they came from and where they are now.
Speaking of where they came from, this brings us to his most recent intellectual project. He has a manuscript in progress exploring Oromo ethics and values.
This feels like a full circle moment.
It really does. We started with his family's strong ethical traditions. Now, after the law degrees, the MBA, the cement factories, the constitutional debates, he's returning to that source material.
But he's viewing it through a scholar's lens now. He's framing it as a contribution to culture, morality, and political community.
Why is that shift to ethics so important? I mean, we've spent this whole deep dive talking about institutions, parliaments, courts, laws.
Because I think Habtamu has come to realize that institutions aren't enough. You can have the best constitution in the world, the best hardware. Yeah. But if the software, the culture, the values, the ethics of the people doesn't support it, the system just crashes.
I like that analogy. The Constitution is the hardware. Culture is the software.
Exactly. By documenting Oromo ethics, he's arguing that we need to look at indigenous knowledge systems. How did these communities resolve conflict before the state even existed? What are the values that bind people together on a human level?
It suggests you can't just import a Western democratic model to plug it in.
You have to ground it in the local moral soil. A resilient democracy needs both. It needs the House of Federation and the ethical traditions of its people. It needs the rule of law and the moral buy-in of the community.
It paints a picture of a man who just refuses to stay in one lane. He's a lawyer who manages factories, a practitioner who writes theory, an Ethiopian leader engaging in Canadian policy.
And that multidisciplinary approach is his superpower. We live in a world of specialists. Everyone knows more and more about less and less. Habtamu's career is a reminder of the value of synthesis.
Synthesis. That is the word, connecting the gears to the wires.
He connects the economic to the political, the local to the global, and ancient ethical traditions to modern constitutional design.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the scholar-practitioner journey of Habtamu Nini Abino, what's the big takeaway for you?
For me, it's the idea that democracy is not a spectator sport. Whether it's his work on the user's handbook or his call for diaspora engagement, the message is consistent. Institutions don't save us. We save the institutions.
The machine doesn't run itself.
It needs operators. It needs people who understand the mechanics, who are ethically grounded, and who are willing to do the work, whether that's debating a constitutional clause or managing a factory floor.
It's a compelling reminder. We so often look at the news and ask, why isn't the government fixing this? Habtamu's life work suggests the answer lies in better users, more informed, more active, and more ethically driven citizens.
A provocative thought for any democracy.
Indeed, we will leave you with that thought. Check your own user manual, see if your software is updated, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.
Thanks for listening.